Welcome to Build Writing. Imagine dedicating 24 hours straight every year to nothing but poetry. Sounds intense, right? But today's guest, Amanda Porter, not only embraces this challenge, she thrives on it. She's been poetry marathoning for nearly a decade, pushing the boundaries of creativity, craft, and endurance. But what happens when you commit to writing poetry every single hour, prompted by themes you can't predict and forms you've never tried before? Amanda reveals the magic behind poetry marathons and how they have profoundly shaped her writing and what she's discovered about herself along the way. From the deep friendship built across continents to the strange and delightful things that inspire poetry at hour 17. Amanda's story proves one thing clearly. Poetry isn't just words, it's a transformative journey. If you're curious about finding creativity in unexpected places, maintaining inspiration under pressure, or simply wonder what drives someone to write hundreds of poems non-stop, lean in. Amanda is about to show us just how far poetry can take us. Let's dive in.
Okay. Well, my name is Amanda Potter. Currently in Jacksonville, Florida. I am originally from Massachusetts, and I started writing poetry at the age of 7 and found poetry marathoning in 2016.
Okay. Why do you okay, why do you like the poetry marathon?
I find it a challenge to work with words that go along with the prompt. A lot of people go off prompt. A lot of people have trouble with the prompts, but the prompts is part of the challenge for me. I like to take the prompt and work it into the poem, and that's how we found new forms. I love poetic forms, limericks and ninettes and nonettes and sonnets and sestinas. And I mean, the list goes on and on and on. And I'm always finding personally, like in my own events, I try to come up with a form that we haven't done yet for every event so that the people that are writing with me, we're always learning something new.
Yeah.
And experimenting with all of those different forms.
Yeah. Writing a marathon, it's doing a marathon in itself, it's new, it's challenging. And then adding a new form of poetry to it, that itself is a challenge of its own. And so I feel like it's a double challenge.
Yes, because you only got an hour to write that poem. So you have to learn the form and write the poem. And some people like it, and then I have a few people that groan every time I throw out a new form for them. But then I have others that get excited about trying new forms like I do.
Yeah. The past years you've been, the past 9, 10 years, going on 10 years you've been doing the poetry marathon. Has there been any year that, stood out specifically to you?
Nothing compares to the first. It just, it just doesn't. The excitement in the community. I fell in love with the community, and nothing has matched that since. But I mean, I have some of my best friends. I've been writing with them for almost a decade now, and we're all over the globe. So, my best friend, my word temptress, I call her. So she lives in Canada, and my other poetic bestie, he is in Ireland. So we're all over. And that's what I loved about the community, is that it's not just the people in a small town getting together and doing this. We're worldwide and getting together and doing this.
Yeah, that's one of the things I love about the poetry marathon is the community itself, right? It's not even the fact that you know the people in the community, right? It's just the fact that you know that there's a community, right? That there are people like you writing at the same time. Just being aware of that, it has this feeling that keeps you going. Like last year I participated in the marathon. This year I didn't. I don't know what happened, but something came up, yeah. But maybe next year. Now that I'm aware that there's this quarterly, maybe I might think about practicing for that. Now you've been doing this for 10 years, so I should be asking you, how do you prepare yourself mentally and physically before and during the poetry marathon?
I dedicate the whole day. I mean, it's 24 hours, so I dedicate the whole day. And nothing else goes on the calendar. People know, I mean, back when my kids lived with me still, I told them there's no TV today. I am writing all day today. You got to find something else to do. I'm not cooking. I'm not cleaning. I'm not driving nowhere. This is what I'm doing. And because I write quarterly now, I don't really have to do like a warm up, because I'm writing so often throughout the year for 12 hours that's really good practice for the 24-hour marathon. Before I started the Quarter Crazy, I would write poetry like once a week or like once a day the week of the marathon. I definitely make sure that I have my snacks beforehand. You don't want to come the morning of the marathon or the 2:00 start for somebody like you, because we start at 8:00 in the morning here. So that's got to be really late for other people across the world. It's all different time zones. So I'm fortunate in the fact that it starts at 8:00 in the morning for me. So I get a good night's sleep the night before. So some of you other people from different time zones, you start at like 3:00 in the morning or 1:00 in the morning and you've gone all day already. And so that's in and of itself is its own challenge. I just make sure I have snacks, and the snacks go from healthy to unhealthy. So I typically have fruit. I got to have chocolate. I got to have some candy because you just never know what you're going to want in that 11th, 12th, 16th, 21st hour. So you got to have a variety.
Are there any specific strategies now that you use to help you maintain or kind of like sustain the creativity? Because by the time you start the first hour, the first 2 hours, it's just everything's coming. But then when you're writing the fifth poem and the fifth hour, it's it's a little bit different. Is there anything that you do to help you keep you going? Creatively, of course, not just physically.
It's hard because each hour is different. Typically, I'm only writing for 20, 30 minutes per hour. I usually can put out something, maybe not publish worthy, but poetry. I can usually put out a poem in about 15 or 20 minutes, depending on the prompt. If the prompt really speaks to me, sometimes it only takes me 10. And then I have 50 more minutes that I've got to fill with other stuff. So I keep books on hand. I keep my journal on hand to continue writing. This past marathon, I actually broke out my sketchbook and I sketched between prompts. You definitely got to remember to drink your water. You don't want to become dehydrated when you're doing this for 24 hours. That's a lot of hours. It's physically taxing. I mean, even though we're not actually running a marathon, we are still performing in a marathon. We are taxing our bodies and our brains. So I make sure that I take frequent breaks. I get up, I walk around, I do some stretches. Sometimes I'll go for a walk. It really depends on the mood, and other times I'm sitting there and I'm writing for the whole 55 minutes and I'm going, oh my gosh, I've only got 5 minutes before the next prompt drops. So it can be challenging, but that's part of the fun. You just never know what you're going to get when the prompt drops.
There's this novel too. It's surprising, and then it's also nice too.
Absolutely.
How do you say that the writing in a marathon affects your writing in terms of the theme or the style of your poems versus the regular poems you write on a normal day?
It's the same for me. There's no real difference unless I'm working with like a specific form. That's when I can get stuck depending on the form. Typically, I enjoy the challenge of the forms, but I don't see that it really if anything, I use more form poetry now than I ever have before, because I like the way that the form poetry comes out. So, specific ones like sonnets or sestinas, and the short poetry, I mean, you can whip out a nanette or a nonette, which is only 9 lines. So, and a very limited number of syllables. So you can put one of those together very quickly, but it's potent poetry. It can be. The meaning comes across in those words that you would never have thought of beforehand. So I think in that effect, it's changed my personal poetry so that it's more substantial poetry and not just me trying to feng shui my feelings, as one of my other poetic friends says. I write to feng shui my feelings, and that's exactly what it is. It's a release. So that purposely writing in the marathon gave my poetry a different outlet.
Yeah. Now, a follow-up question would be, how do you balance spontaneity with craft, when writing poetry under marathon conditions? Because a lot of persons will say, well, the poem is, they're all forced. What's the case for you?
Typically, when I write poetry outside of the marathon, it's because something has been invoked, some feeling, and the only way to express it is to put it down on paper. And I'm not one of those people where I go to the computer. 98% of my poetry gets written on paper with a pen or a pencil before it ever makes it into a digital format. There's just something about expressing those feelings and thoughts onto paper
Yeah.
that it's that release. It's really, it's a cathartic release. So that's the spontaneity, I mean, when you get upset, when you have a fight or your kid gets in trouble. My daughter got stung by a jellyfish one day, and I came home and wrote a silly poem about jellyfish because that was the experience of the day.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an interesting thing to to attempt to write a poem every day, just like a comedian would attempt to write a joke every day. Because what happens is that you start paying attention to the little details. You're like, oh yeah, that could be a poem. Yeah, yeah. This man called me stupid. I could write a poem about that. And it's really a nice way to like go through life, because now you start noticing things that you otherwise did not notice. You pay attention to the details. What was the color of his teeth when he said that? How was he smiling? How could I describe the smile? And that for me, it's a fun experience, because now you're not just moving through life. Now you're experiencing life in a way like you're watching a movie.
Yes. Yes, because you can take all of those little pieces and create a scene for somebody through words, and that's amazing. It's an amazing art.
Yeah. You've been doing these for going on to 10 years, and one could say that you did the first year and you loved it, and that's why you did the second year, and then that's why you did the third year, and even on to the 10 years, 10th year. What's one unexpected lesson you've learned from participating in a poetry marathon?
That it's not for everybody.
Ooh, ooh, ooh.
There are some people that don't like it, and for me that's hard to understand because I love it so much. The Poetry Marathon is my favorite day of the year, right next to my birthday. That's the top 2 best days of the year for me. And the reason it is because I get to stop and focus on something that I love for 24 hours. Not
Yeah.
many people have the willingness to do that for themselves, not only for their craft, but for themselves. I take that day for myself every year. That's the day I write poetry. And now that I've been moderator through the last several years, I've been one of the night moderators through the night. It can be challenging for people to get through there, and they need somebody that's like, you got this, let's go. You need some pictures? I got those. You need something else? You need a word? I got that too. Go get a book, something just to keep that energy, because you have to keep that energy up. or the poetry falls flat, or you get stuck and you don't want to do it. And so I try hard to keep a very high vibe that particular day. And not everybody wants to do that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. When you said the poetry mantra is not for everybody, I'm like, ah, that's a thin line. I'm like,
It can be for anybody. Anybody can do it, but it's
okay,
not for everybody. Just like running a marathon is just not for everybody.
yeah,
Some people get in there and they do it and they like, that's the hardest thing I've ever done. I'm never going to do another one of those again. And then
yeah.
you've got the people like me who become addicted to it and go, that's not enough. Give me more. So,
Yeah, yeah. The thing I love about and this is not just in writing. The thing I love about marathons and some of the physical sports, like what's it? Let's say you're training to wrestle or box and all that. Is that as much as it's about quote unquote a competition or a context, it reveals so much about you to you, right? And
yes,
that's the same thing
yes,
Poetry Marathon does. You start to see certain things that some stories that you never knew you had in you. Like, oh, where's this coming from? Like, what's going on here? Like, I can't believe that stuff just came out of me. Like, what? I don't understand. And then you also realize that sometimes we overcomplicated things, right? We've been our own, what's the word? This author called it the resistance. Oh, what's his name? I'm trying to remember his name. I don't know. It's called it the resistance, and it's on my work. Oh, I mean, I want to write a poem, but I just don't feel like I have the ideas yet. And sometimes you write
right.
a poem and it's total garbage. Sometimes you write a poem and you're like, wow, wow, did I just like you look
Yeah,
at the poem and you just keep smiling. You're like, you sit down and you're like, wow, I can't believe I wrote that.
mhm.
Yeah, and you're just happy. I wrote that. That is brilliant.
It helps for people to let that poetry sit. A lot of people don't think that their poetry is really good. I would never in a million years have put myself along the same likes of some of the people that I'm writing with, because a lot of the people that participate in the poetry marathon, they're published poets. I mean, the anthologies that the poetry marathon aside, those that participate get to be in that anthology, or used to be able to. They don't do the anthology anymore, but which is sad, but it just got so big that we just can't.
Yeah,
So, but some of these people that I've been writing with for a decade have numerous books, not just one volume, or not just in that anthology, but they have numerous publications out of their poetry. And I'm just like, I'm in the same league with these people. When did that happen? How did that happen? I never saw that. That is not something that I would have foreseen coming out of a hobby, because that's what I consider the marathon. It's a hobby that I like to do. It's not, I don't do it for publication. I just do it for the sheer joy of it. It is going to come out into publication, but that wasn't the purpose. So it's interesting to see yourself with remarkable writers, and the people in the community just amaze me. It never ceases to amaze me, the work that gets put out into the world through these events. It's astounding.
yeah, yeah. And I think there was a time they took a break. I can't remember the exact year, but something came up, and for some reason they were not able to do the poetry marathon. Am I?
The
Is it just me?
2019,
Okay,
yeah,
2019. Yeah, because I remember I was looking
yep,
forward to it, and then
2019,
I was like, oh, what's happening? Oh no, that's sad. It's
yes,
yeah. I'm
yes.
glad. I'm
Which
glad.
is when the 2019 is what really sent me off on creating and developing my own events, because I missed it so badly
Yeah,
that year. So yeah, I was very happy to see them come back in 2020 and be a moderator since. That was the time that I started taking over the night moderator, because with their Caitlin and Jacob's girls, they just can't be up all night anymore. And I totally understand that. And if I'm going to be up all night anyway, might as well, help out, pitch in to make sure that this event that I love so much continues.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, like organizing a marathon is not exactly easy, right? You know this because you're organizing yours too, which you do every quarter. Man, oh man, that's a lot.
It is a lot. It's a lot to come up with prompts, that you don't, because you don't want people writing the same thing over and over. Yeah, you don't want people to get bored. So I really give it to Caitlin. It's one of the reasons why I still love the Poetry Marathon, even over my own events, is because I don't have to come up with the prompts. I just have to show up and write. So I don't have to do any of the hard stuff. So that stays my favorite day because it can be challenging just to come up with the prompts.
Yeah. When they switched from what's the platform, from the regular website down to Circle, which they use now for the community, it made everything really organized and really what's the word? Really, it brought a closeness in terms of the community compared to the other platform they used.
I don't know. I liked being on Facebook because I was on Facebook anyway. I did not like the WordPress site. WordPress in and of itself had its own challenges. The circle was something that we had to just get used to. It's not my favorite, but that's the platform they chose, so that's the platform I'll work on. I think that it was a little bit easier to find everything. I do think that the circle made it a little more streamlined as far as being able to find prompts, being able to communicate. There wasn't, there were groups that were in the WordPress site, but they were like all different, and we didn't have that. We were all together in circles. So, I do agree with you there that it brought the community just a little bit closer. So, but I miss having the Facebook group and those others that were in, part of that Facebook league. Yeah. We miss it, but I understood, it was like, I understand why you're doing this, because Circle gives us the closed platform that we need in order to register our poems so that we get those credits, to make that 24 hours, but it also gives us the privacy so that it's not considered published poetry, so that we can go off and publish and send those out for publishing later, which was a big issue that we've been running into as poets.
And later on, when I went to do my own investigation on the platform, I realized that I think it cost them a minimum of $89 every month to have the platform up and running. Yeah, and like I'm guessing the reason the platform is still there is maybe because I think maybe they paid for a monthly subscription. So probably after this month they might end up pausing the plan, and then till next year before they pay for a subscription again, because it's $9 minimum every month. It's quite expensive when you're considering that you're not using the platform all the time. It's not like it's a community that we have to chat all the time. Yeah, they're really trying. It's not easy. I like the concept. I like the idea. I also love the community supporting one another, and you're part of it too.
Exactly.
Yeah. Earlier on, you mentioned that you use a lot of poetic. You like to experiment poetic forms, and so what's one of the poetic forms or technique you find most rewarding or challenging?
Challenging, working with meter. That sonnets are probably still where I struggle the most as far as, so I try to stay away from them, but I've been practicing more. So, because it's my goal, I would like to write I think they call it a queen sonnet, where it's like 22 sonnets that are all linked by lines. That's the goal. So I have to get better at sonnets before I can take that challenge on. But it's a goal. So I like rhyming. So I love forms that have rhyming sequences, so like the sonnet has a lot of rhyming sentences, or a sestina. But I really like the short poetry too, because it really makes you dig in for those words. If you can only use 4 syllables, how do you describe something so vast as love in 4 syllables? That can be a challenge in and of itself, to find the exact word that expresses what you want to convey.
Yeah. I always it intrigues me because I realize that, when the poets of old, like William Shakespeare and all those poets that wrote with sonnets, like sometimes, like I'm like, I mean, the meter, and the rhymes and everything. I'm like, because I don't know, it's a really long time, but it feels like it was normal to them, like, the way we write free verse poetry today. Like, that's the way, like, writing a sonnet. It felt that way. At least I assume.
I it, they spoke differently then too, so I think that had a lot to do with it. I don't really know. I'm not. I would love to sit down with some, Poe or Shakespeare or Longfellow. It would be interesting to sit down with them for an hour and ask them questions. Why did you do this? Why did you do this? There are some people that just have.
Okay, you're saying,
So I forgot.
yeah,
I forgot where
yeah.
we were.
No, you're saying, you'd love to have a conversation with Longfellow, Poe, or Shakespeare about, their
Right.
writing.
There there are some people that have that innate ability naturally, like my mother. My mother wrote beautiful sonnets. She had this natural ability to pick up that metered cadence and just make stuff flow. And her stuff read like Shakespeare. And I was just like, how do you do that? And she's like, I don't know. It just does. I'm like, thanks.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, yeah, I mean, we could learn it. We could. I mean, yeah, we could. But nobody really. Sonnet is not is not, quote unquote, in fashion, right? It's not. Everybody's talking about free verse. How do you write free verse and free verse? But once in a while, it's good to read a nice and beautiful sonnets. Like, well, we do that to Shakespeare's work, right? Yeah. That's what we do to Shakespeare. They also,
Yes.
most of them, yeah, sonnet. When you have you started editing the poems you wrote on Poetry Marathon, then, or how long do you wait for it?
Usually I usually give it a couple of days. Sometimes I go back that day, if I wasn't happy with a particular word or a particular line. If it comes to me later in the marathon, I'll go back and edit it then. But typically, I don't go back and do a lot of edits. When I write a line of poetry, that's what I intended it to be. So I typically don't go back and edit a lot of my poetry. Do I make a word correction here or there? Maybe change a line break? Sure. But I don't heavily edit my poetry, because it's like, to me, it's like a snapshot. It's a picture of that particular moment in time. And you're not going to get back that particular moment in time. I don't care when you edit it, even if it's 20 minutes later, it's not gonna be the same. The feelings that invoked those words, those specific words, are not gonna be the same feelings that you have when you're editing that poem. So I try, when I'm crafting it, it's exact when I put it down. I mean, which is why I always start with paper, because I can scratch it out, and be like, okay, that doesn't quite work. But when I get that line, that's the line. It's not likely to change after.
Yeah, yeah. Sometimes I feel like every time you edit a poem, you write another poem. You're writing another poem. It's not the same. Like, it's like every time you try to correct, yeah, it's like you're creating another thing, another being of its own, and that old being is still there. So now it's a question of, which should I choose, especially when you want to publish. So it's not like, oh, I edited the poem. No, you didn't. You created I mean, you got an inspiration from this previous poem, but you wrote it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And I've often ended up with bonus poetry through the marathons that way, because I will be writing in the middle of writing a poem, and that poem will kind of be complete. And then my mind runs off in a different direction. And I'm like, oh, I I got to get that down, and it's not the same poem. So you gotta break them apart. You gotta switch it up. So I just call that bonus poetry and run with it.
Yeah, yeah. You're in the middle of a poem and then you get an idea and you're like, no, no, this is a completely different point. Uh, I mean, I write it down and sometimes I put ellipses and like some notes to save something else, and then I just write. And
Yep.
okay, when
Just
you
gotta
write a
get it
poem,
out.
do you start with the title first, or you write a poem and then you come up?
It really depends. Sometimes the title comes immediately and shapes the poem. Other times the poem creates the title. So it's not a one, and it's not one way or the other, it's both. Often
Yeah.
in this, 1
Have you?
hour will be, the prompt will speak to me in a certain way, and I'm like, okay, that's the title I'm running with because that's what the poem is. And other times I'm like with the word prompts where you're just given a list of words to write,
Yeah.
to create your poem with. Those of mine don't usually start with a title because I don't have, it's just ingredients at that point, right? You got to put the recipe together and find out what you make and then title it. So it depends.
Have you ever had a title that you just came up with and you're like, ooh, how you look at the title and you're like, I can't believe I'm the one who created.
I have
uh,
gone back and found poetry that I've written in the last years, and I'm like, that 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 was me. I wrote that? No. That's not, how did that happen? So it can be very interesting, the words that come out. You get into that groove and you create beautiful things, and you come back and you get to re-experience those beautiful things from a different viewpoint, which is fascinating in and of itself. It's just, we gotta love the art.
yeah, yeah. Thank you for sharing your process story, and I'm really really glad you accepted my, and yeah, like when I hopped on the call, I'm really happy, like the fact that you showed up, you booked, and we're having a chat. I feel this tingling.
I'm
Yeah.
really glad. It's really funny because this is the second interview that I've done for the Poetry Marathon. And
Oh,
the other person that asked me, to interview me, we've been friends since. So, but I love talking about the Poetry Marathon because it's such a great experience for people in the writing community. I highly recommend it. But I also know, like I said before, that it's not for everyone. My daughter has done it with me. She's done it twice with me. She did the full and she did a half, like a year or two later, because I can't do 24 hours, Mom. I don't know how you do that. I really just don't know how you do it. So, I mean, I got her through the first one, but I love it. I love the community. I love the poetry. I love the experience. So I'm always happy to talk about it, always happy to share about it.
yeah, yeah. While you were just talking about the story of your daughter, it just occurred to me that we should have quarter marathon, like 6 hours instead of 12 hours. We have the 6 hours, the 12 hours, and then maybe 18 hours, and then 20 hours, and then you go as
Well, that's why when I started the Quarter Crazy, like 24 hours is just, it's too much. 24 hours, 4 times a year is just that's a lot, which is why I keep mine at 12. It's like 12 hours. That's a good shift at work. That's a good haul. We're going to call it that. So that's why I keep mine at 12. We don't do a half. It's just 12 hours. But we do it 4 or 5 times a year because I often throw in a New Year's Eve event where it's not really the Quarter Crazy because we end up with 5 in the year, but it's something we like to get together on New Year's Eve and write poetry together. So I was like, if you guys want to come, I will throw the prompts up there, and they're always so grateful for me to put those prompts together. And I'm like, you guys are the ones that inspire me to do this. You know, I mean, if it's no fun to do a poetry marathon by yourself. I did it in 2015 because I had missed the starting mark. I had decided, you know, that I was going to do my own. I was going to write 35 poems in 35 hours because it was a significant life event. And I got to, I think, 18 or 22, but I was by myself and there wasn't anybody in the boat rowing with me. You know what I mean? And it's
Yeah.
different. The community
Yeah.
makes the difference. So I'm
Yeah.
always happy to put together prompts for my friends that like to write poetry. They're like, yeah, let's do it. I was like, then let's do it. We got this.
Yeah. I want us to talk about the personal and the philosophical a little bit, right? How has writing poetry changed you as
That's a good question. I don't know, because I've been writing poetry so long. I don't know.
the trans?
Yeah, I don't know that I can't really see. I can't back up enough from
Yeah,
that
and
scope
say this is the
to
before,
see.
and then this is
Yeah, so I think that the poetry marathon in it of itself changed me. I never would have thought to come up with something like this on my own, you know, that there would be people that would want to write poetry for 12 hours. I mean, that's insane, you know, and people, when I tell people that are not in the writing community, they look at me like I'm crazy, which is where the quarter crazy name came from. They're like, "You're crazy." I'm like, "No, just a quarter." You know, I'm just a little off center. That's just, you know, but I've always been that way. And I think I've always enjoyed art, all forms of art, music and paints, and, you know, words are no different. Words are paint for us poets. We concoct these poems, you know, and it's all different colors of paint. So it's just, I love it. So I don't know. It's hard for me to say how it's transformed me, but the marathoning has changed me. It's made me more confident about my writing. It's made me more outspoken about poetry. I share more of my work, you know, with friends and family and through the events.
what do you want your when you write poetry, what do you want your poetry to achieve or communicate?
It's just an expression of myself. Like I said, it's like taking a picture. So I just want to capture that particular moment in time, so that it's a keepsake, you know, whether good, bad, or indifferent. It can be healing and therapeutic when you're able to express certain feelings that you can't express any other way. So sometimes it conveys that, other times it conveys an important message to other people. I think that poetry gives hope to people when they don't have any, you know? That's why people look to art in the first place, as a way to understand or a way to escape.
Yeah. And thank you. How do you define success as a poet?
I don't. So I'm not familiar with Sussex.
When you say you're not familiar with success, what do you
I don't understand the question.
Oh, the question I asked is what's like how do you define success as a poet or writer? Personally,
Substance.
how yeah, success,
Okay.
success.
Substance. So anything that makes somebody else that's reading the poetry think or have a feeling. If you can make somebody else take up your thought and go, they have something there. Or that's a beautiful way to say that, when you stop and catch somebody's breath or you catch their attention for that moment, that particular line, making them feel something. That's substance to me.
Oh, okay. I'm not sure you get the word I'm saying. The word I'm saying is like failure, success. That's
Success.
yeah.
Success.
How do you define it as a poet?
For myself, it's just creating the poetry and not letting it stay in my head, actually getting stuff on paper. You know, I feel very accomplished when I take a prompt and I feel like I do a good job with it. That is in of itself success. Leading marathon every year, every quarter is success. That is success to me, being able to do those things.
Thank you for sharing your own metric for defining. Yeah, we have a poet on the podcast. It would be nice if we ever could read. And the thing about poetry is that would you be kind to poem, most specifically the ones that you publish, so that you don't end up reading a poem here and it affects you publishing it, because usually they're like, oh, I hope it.
So I just in case, I have the first anthology that I was in, which was
Okay.
2016. So the poem I wrote was called Taken Out of Context. I don't
Oh,
remember what prompt it was, what hour it was,
yeah.
but I remember that we had to come up with a cliche, right? That was the prompt. It was to come up with a cliche and write about that. So this was what I wrote for that prompt, and it's called Taken Out of Context. Excuse me, I can make my own excuses. Thank you. Pardon me for asking. How are you? Despondent world, welcome home. Most don't truly care. Have a nice day. Excuse me for having hope. So that was that particular poem for that particular year for that anthology.
Yeah, thanks for sharing.
Oh, you're very welcome.
Yeah, I was just beginning to get settled in to receive the poem, and then you just like sit, and I'm like, oh, but we just
But we
started,
just
like,
started.
well,
Yep.
I'm like, you're supposed to keep going, and you're like, no, that's the end.
That's it. Yep, that's it.
Yeah,
That's all she
yeah,
wrote. And
yeah,
a lot of my poetry is like that. It's short and sweet. It's to the point. I don't see any point in dawdling on. So
yeah,
when it's complete, and I'm like, there you go. So not all of it, but most of my poetry is pretty short. I
yeah.
don't write long. I don't write, the longest ones
see,
I've
I
written are like
see.
50 or 60 lines. So, and that's
Yeah,
because it's form poetry.
I see the pattern. Earlier on when I was asking you some other questions, the choice of words you use in answering the one was snapshots. I feel like it's a photograph. It's a shot. And now I
Yes.
get what it means, because now it's, when you read your poem, what I could remember was this poet, what name? Carl Sand. I don't know if you know him. Carl, Carl Sandberg or Sand. I can't remember the exact name, but he writes really really short poems. And there was one
Mhm.
where he wrote about dawn or something like that, and the way he described dawn like a kite coming to harvest some blue chickens. And I was like, ooh, that picture just stayed stuck in my head. And it was really, really like, I think about 4 to 6 lines there. It was straight to the point. And, it's that kind of poem that once you read it, you end up reading like multiple times. You go right again. You're like, oh, wow. I mean, wow. And, yeah. Short poems have their own power.
Yes. They have their own place for sure. And like I said, it's my poetry tends to lean towards the shorter side because I'm capturing that moment in that space and time, and that can be hard. And when you drag it on, like I said, the feeling changes, and then the poem changes, and it's like, okay, well, if I don't want to take you along off on that in that rabbit hole, then we need to end it here. We just got to be happy with ending it right here so that you get that sandwich, you get that snapshot.
I feel like poets, one of the things poets do is they say a lot in small work. They try to say big things in small words, right?
Yes.
And if you're trying to like be rambunctious or just say so much things, it loses the point is its own relevance, because it's meant to be a condensed taste that when I put it in my mouth, it becomes mouth watering. It swells to fill my mouth, right? That's the idea. It's not. I don't want so much stuff like that. And so something I can read and I'd not get lost and start asking myself, wait, what was the point about what was going on? I mean, I'm lost. Yeah. Now, I would ask you a couple of questions and then would round up the episode. Generally, I just want us to step away from like the poetry marathon and zoom out a bit. What is in your own words, right? I just want you to define it in your own words, and you can use analogies, most anything that helps to express or explain what you.
Again, I think that my friend Laura, she probably said it best, is I write to feng shui my soul. Poetry has always been that for me. When I can't express myself verbally, poetry helps me to find that voice because it's just me and the paper. There's nobody arguing that perspective. There's nobody cheering that perspective. It's just me and that paper. And I can be as real, as raw, or as evil and defiant as I wish to be. And it's art. It's word art is what it is. So, and it's open to interpretation. Just because you read the words that I wrote and it invokes something in you, that might not be how I intended it to be meant. You know, I've had people comment on my poetry and say, I love what you did with this line. And I'm like, you've taken that line completely out of context. You have put your own meaning in that. But that's what's so awesome about art, is it's open to interpretation. Everybody sees it just a little bit differently.
It's the next question. It's but like the first question I asked, which is what makes
the intent behind the writer. One word can be a poem. 6 words can be a poem. Love in and of itself is a poem. So it's what makes a poem is the intent behind the writer.
Why do I feel like I understand you? Yet I also feel like you should explain yourself.
That I should explain myself.
Yeah.
Well, because, there are people that write fiction, right? And that's hard. And it has a lot of rules and you have to abide by those rules. And poetry is not. It's a free-for-all. You can do what you want. It's poetry.
Yeah.
It's art. It's not fiction. It's the art of words. So a poem is a poem because the writer says it's a poem. So, and it doesn't have to follow the rules. It doesn't have to follow any rules. That's what I love about poetry. It's art.
And one of the things that intrigues me the most is this term called poetic.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
I can take words and make them do things that other people can't because I have that poetic license.
Yeah, like I mean, it's a poem. He's a poet. I mean, he could mix up words and use it to express them this way. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing what makes a poem a poem. I mean, it will make things a little bit easier for a lot of persons to start asking. Well, I'm just getting started with poetry. I don't know how do I even know that I'm writing a poem and not just doing something else?
If it means something to the writer, it's poetry. So anything can be a poem. Even a letter to yourself is a form of poetry.
Yeah. I understand it now.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for explaining.
Very well. I hope. I'm glad you understand it a little bit better. I don't know if I understand it completely.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, the question was, what do you think makes a poem? And you shared yeah. So it's not like, oh, I have said, the thing I love about writing is there are no rules or laws. Even if there are rules and laws, at the end of the day, you end up breaking the rules and laws, and you still so. Yeah. So it's okay. One final thing I'd love for you to do for listeners of the episode is for people who who just heard of Poetry Marathon for the first time and they're considering doing one, whether in a group or maybe they're just thinking of I could do one maybe just something really short, maybe an hour, and really test and see? Or what advice would you have give for someone thinking of doing a poem?
Definitely get out there and write some poetry. There are all kinds of prompts available. Try a poem a day for a week if you want to try and do something like that. Or say you have 2 or 3 hours or 4 hours. See how many poems you can whip out in that amount of time. Because like I said, for me specifically, sometimes with the right prompt or very short poetry, you can whip one out in about 5 or 10 minutes. It doesn't take a long time to craft poetry. It doesn't have to. It doesn't have to take hours upon hours upon hours to craft a poem. A haiku is 3 lines and 5, 7, 12, 18 syllables. It can be quick. It doesn't have to be time consuming.
Yeah. Well, thanks for that lovely piece. What do you do, and where can people learn more about you?
Well, I am on Facebook. That's about the only place you can find me. And of course, the Quarter Crazy Marathon is also on Facebook. So, and our next event isn't until September 13th, and it happens in the Facebook group. So if you just follow the Quarter Crazy Marathon, all that information shows up there.
Yeah. Once again, thank you so much for honoring. It's been thank you for listening to Beauty Writing. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe wherever you get your podcast, and share it with a friend who loves poetry and creative writing. Leave us a quick review or rating. It really helps others find the show. You can also connect with me, and I'd love for you to subscribe to the newsletter. He's saying all the behind the scenes things I'm experimenting on and things I'm working on in terms of creative writing. Yeah, it'll mean a lot to me. And I share the writing prompts, behind the scenes, speaks, and more. Yeah, a lot of things. And if you have any questions or ideas, feel free to reach out to me, and I'll be sure to respond. Love to hear from you. Next week, we'll be diving into something really, really amazing. And you have to tune in next week to find out what that will be. Until next time, keep writing, keep building your craft. See you next time.